Welcome everyone to today's Performance Clinic. My name is Andy Gartner. I've been doing performance for the last 15 years and I have the pleasure today to give an update on what is Dynatrace all about, how to get started. This is a little refresher of my first online performance clinic that I did about a year and a half ago. Everything you see today is fully free for you. You can get your Dynatrace personal license free for life. You can also watch all the other recordings by just following the online Perf Clinic link here. Just go to the YouTube channel. If you have any questions while in the webinar, put them into the question feature. If you have questions later, put them in our discussion forum, answers.dynatrace.com. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or send me an email. If you register for the free trial, you will also get an email from me. Please also check out in the spam folders. I've heard that sometimes these emails end up in spam. You can hear already I'm a fast talker because I'm excited about this, so I don't want to waste more of your time. So what will you learn today? These are the things I've prepared for you. I want you to walk away from this webinar to know what is Dynatrace AppMon all about, what does it do, what is in for you if you're a dev, test, ops, biz, or if you're doing continuous delivery or DevOps. Is Dynatrace actually good for your app stack and your deployment model? So we talk about the technical options that we have here. Maybe it's not for you, it could also be, but we'll cover all of that. How does it actually work? So what do you need to do actually to get this working on your own app? And the most important question that everybody asks, what's the impact on my app? Then I'm doing a live demo. I'm installing two apps that I've actually downloaded from the internet, two open source projects. One is called Alfresco. It's a content management system running in Tomcat. And also I have .NET Nuke, which is another content management system implemented in ASP.NET. I'm going to run everything on my local machine, and I'll try to get the whole thing done in 5 minutes to show you that this can easily be done with Dynatrace within 5 minutes. And then some final notes, how you can get your personal license for life. Yes, it is really for life. Just follow the bit.ly DT personal link. And there's also a lot of more stuff out there, either on the YouTube channel that we have, or you can also share your data with me through my Share Your PureBev program, where I look at the data from you and I give you some free performance review. So what does Dynatrace do? Quick overview in case you have not seen it before. The way this works is like any other, I would say, APM tool or diagnostics, tracing, monitoring, user experience management, real user monitoring tool, whatever different terms you hear out there. You basically have an app, whether it's a very simple one or a rather complex one distributed across multiple tiers, different technologies. If this is the visualization, just as any other app APM tool, application performance management tool, we are going to install what we call our agents. These agents sit in your app, in your Java containers, .NET containers, PHP, Node.js, and so on and so forth, and basically collect data. This data is sent to what we call a Dynatrace collector, and then the collector, one or multiple, depending on how large your environment is, will send the data to a central component, which is called the Dynatrace server. The Dynatrace server is storing this data that is captured in a session storage. This is your local file system, and also in a performance warehouse, which is a database. And the data is then also made available through our web interface, through our rich client, but you can also opt in to export and stream the data out to Splunk, Elasticsearch, or any other big data solutions to do your BI on top of that. Okay, so this is kind of general how this works. What is in for you? So what kind of data do you see? This is now an example of a rather, let's say, complex app running in a production environment. If you're biz or ops, obviously you want to get an overview of how is your app doing, how are your users doing. So we give you a high-level overview in our HTML5 touch-enabled web UI. You can do some geo-analysis, where are people coming in from, what's your UX breakdown. So are people happy or not happy? Are they coming in through web, mobile web, or native? And also you can obviously do all of your top X analysis that you like. Also, and one of our nice use cases is you can also locate a user. So if somebody calls in, if your CMO calls in, your CEO or one of your beloved customers, and they say everything doesn't work as well, then you can just look up that user and figure out why this user has a problem. If you don't have an individual user that has a problem, but you want to figure out, okay, why are these people bouncing off of our website when they just before they try to buy something, then you can do your analytics. So you can do your multidimensional analysis. We call this Purelytics. And the cool thing is you can drill down, you can slice and dice the data, and once you have identified a certain set of users that you want to inspect more, you can inspect them. You can see every single individual user that matches your criteria, And here's the cool thing. This is all done through web. And now this is the handover to dev. Because if you have identified a certain user that has a problem, technically, they have performance issues or they have some errors that they experienced, you can now hand this over to dev. So just click on that link, opening client will now automatically open the Dynatrace switch client, which has all the diagnostic capabilities. So if I'm the dev now, I would see all the user details of this user that had a problem that you, as let's say the business analyst, told me about to look at. I see the user details. I see the full user journey. That means I see every single click this user did, what they did on the page, how they ended up having a problem. And for every single action, for every single step along the journey, we see it down to the method level, which web services were called, which database statements were called, which exceptions were thrown. So this is awesome information as a developer if you really need to figure out why something broke. Going a step back, obviously this is not the end of what we can do for biz and app. So if you are an application owner or a business owner, you want to know what's going on with the users on your system. So you have user metrics, but on the same side, you can compare them with your app metrics. So maybe the reason why your number of users going down is because you had a deployment which was bad, and then the number of exceptions went up in your Tomcat container because you made some configuration changes. So we can easily, on one single point of view, show you user metrics versus app metrics. Of course, we also have something for the app owners and the ops people. So we have traditional system monitoring, obviously CPU, memory, network disk utilization. You can tap into any other source that you have available. We automatically figure out if there's any alerts going on, any servers, any containers, any processes that are having any issues. And basically you can, with that, tell, did you have a good deployment or bad deployment, or is anything bad going on? If you had a good deployment, everything is good. If you had a bad deployment, well, guess what? If you had a bad deployment, you probably, again, want to hand it over to the dev, because the dev should look at, hey, what happened with this particular release that we pushed out on December 8th, like shown here. What the dev can again do, deep dive, and I think this is the cool thing, we capture the data that makes sense on the one side, high level for the business, for the ops, for the app owners, but then also for the devs. This is a very traditional view that I as a dev or as an architect look into, which is called the transaction flow. So I can look at how after deployment transactions are executing in my system. I can do what I call architectural validations. Oh, really? We make 170 database calls. We have so many REST calls that are going on between the front end and the back end, and we also have strange calls going from the front end directly to the database, even though that should not be the case. I can drill deeper down to method level, so figuring out which methods, which code change actually impact the execution time of my critical business methods. I can go down to database statements. I see every single SQL statement, including bind values, to figure out if I may have made a change in my data access layer and that causes a problem on my database layer. Of course, there's more. I can look at every single exception, logs, memory allocations, threads, and I can actually look at the actual code, because the way we work, we instrument bytecode, and we therefore have all the bytecode, so we can actually show you the line of code, whether it's developed by your own developers or by a third party, that causes an issue. Now, a lot of people also use this in perf engineering, and I call it perf engineering even though that's a broad term. Whether you use it in a load testing environment or really if you have engineers that are analyzing and on focusing on performance and architectural issues. So here's a nice overview that one of my colleagues built, where you can compare two different runs of a load test against, I think this was an IBM WebSphere system, an e-commerce system. So you can look at high-level metrics. Where does it break? When does it break? At which load? And also you can compare load tests. So if you run your regular load tests, which you hopefully do, whether you use LoadRunner, Silk, Visual Studio, JMeter, BlazeMeter, whatever tools that are out there, Dynatrace captures all the data, and at the end you can say, well, how does this load test now compare to the previous one, to our golden standard? What has changed? Down to the method level, down to the database statement. Okay? Now, also what's pretty interesting nowadays is that obviously the database is a key component to every app. It has always been a challenge to get database people on board to give you details from the database while your system is under load. We give you the full visibility into your database. So if you are a performance engineer or an architect or even a developer, you get all the details of your Oracle and SQL Server database on what's going on in the database itself, why is something slow and what is slow. Not only that, we even break it down to the execution plan of an individual SQL statement. So if you figure out the recent code change causes a certain SQL statement to just now take so much longer, you can just say, well, show me this execution plan so I know how I can optimize my indexes, or I can optimize that statement without having to go to the database itself, without having to bug any DBA that are typically busy with other stuff. Okay, so great for these types of diagnostics. It doesn't end here. So obviously what I just showed you is a lot of diagnostics, figuring out why things break. But what we really want to achieve is we want to build better applications from the start and stop bad code changes once they are introduced, once they're checked in. So what you see here is an overview of our continuous integration feature. So what you see here on the top, Dynatrace can analyze every single unit, integration, REST API test, all of your Selenium tests, not only in analyzing a single test, but we are basically looking at the test. We're looking at different key architectural metrics, the things you've seen before, the number of database statements being executed, the number of objects being allocated, the time it takes to execute, and we do this for every single test, for every single build. And if a developer checks in a code change that is impacting one of these metrics in a negative way, so for instance makes a code change to your database access layer, and now you're executing 10 times as many database statements, or that code now that you're testing is now taking 10 times as long, we are basically saying this is not good, this is a bad build. So we show it to you in an overview like this, deep down. We also give you an overview on a build-to-build basis. So what do we as Dynatrace believe what the quality of that build really is, how many good tests, how many bad tests, how many degrading tests there are. But we also know that most of you that have a CI, a pipeline, probably use tools like Jenkins and Bamboo, our Team Foundation server, and whatever other servers are out there. So you can obviously also pull this data into your build server to not make everybody have to look at yet another tool. So it's fully integrated into Jenkins, Bamboo, and all the other servers as well. So with all of this, and there's obviously much more, but the message here is Dynatrace, I believe, and I've been working with this company for so many years, is an awesome tool to capture deep dive information that you can then visualize for all the different stakeholders. And here's again just the four screenshots that I've shown you before. Whether you're biz ops, biz app, dev, or if you're doing CI, CD, Dynatrace captures the same level of data, just presenting it in a different way so that it makes sense. And not only do we capture this data in the different environments, we also allow you to easily share that data. One of the cool aspects of Dynatrace is that no matter where you capture data, whether it's on the developer's desk, in CI, in load testing, in production, you can always export either a single transaction, a user journey, even a whole load test maybe, or a certain time frame in a production environment, export it and then send it to whoever needs to look at this problem, with all the level of details that I've shown you before, down to the method level or as high up as this user was not happy. And the reason why I want to mention this is obviously cool for you internally, or if you want to share the data with your third-party providers, but I also offer a service that I call Share Your Pure Path, and this is for free. So for our free trial users, also for our customers, of course, feel free to leverage that, export some Pure Paths, send it to me, and what I will send back to you is a free performance analysis. And you can see here one of the examples. I basically give you a high-level analysis of what I've identified in the session, including screenshots of how I navigate through the product, what I see in the tool, what strikes out to me, and what I think you should do to make your life better with this application. All right. I hope you're excited as I am. Now let's go to the next step. Is Dynatrace good for you or not? You know, that's a big question. So I try to answer some of the questions. So first of all, a lot of people ask, so what technologies do you support? Everything that runs on Java, .NET, PHP, Node.js, everything that runs on Apache IIS, Nginx, you see all of these, all the major application servers, the major bundled applications, everything is covered, whether it's web apps, whether it's rich client apps, whether it's your batch shops, your web services, your console apps, your REST APIs. Also for mobile, we have an awesome solution for both native and hybrid applications for iOS and Android. Of course, mobile web is just handled anyway. So yes, for all of these technologies, we give it a go. Also, we don't care where your application is deployed, whether you run it locally, virtually, in a container, or in the cloud. We care about the application technology itself. We don't care about where you run it. The good news is if you run it in one of these containers, we also automatically provide insight into these containers. So for instance, is your VMware over-provisioned? How is your Docker container doing? How many containers are actually running there? What's going on? We also, hopefully most of you are not deploying apps manually, but you're using automation scripts, whether you use Chef, Puppet, Ansible, PowerShell, or whatever's out there. We have scripts for you. It's all up on GitHub. Very easy to find, and just use them and automate Dynatrace. Also, yes, of course, if you want to integrate Dynatrace in your existing environment, Dynatrace should not be a tool that you bring in where you have to change everything around what you've done in your environment so far. Everything in Dynatrace is REST enabled. It means you can configure, you can control, you can get data out of Dynatrace through REST. And here are just a couple of plugins that are listed, but I think we have several hundred plugins out on GitHub that you can download, and a lot of use cases also in our blog. For Docker, I know Docker is a hot topic these days. We also have Docker pre-configured Docker containers that you can just use to launch your Dynatrace server, your collectors, or whatever you want. Quick question that also always comes up: what's the license model? There's three things that I want to highlight. So the first thing that I see a lot of people when they try to evaluate an application performance management tool, you can use the free trial. So just go online to bit.ly/DT-Personal, register for your free license. That means you get the full product, up to 5 agents. That means 5 Java, 5 .NET, 5 PHP, 5 web servers on any number of machines, on up to 5 machines, obviously, so you can analyze distributed applications. This is good for 30 days. After 30 days, it automatically converts to what we call a personal license. And I also have a link at the bottom with one of the blog posts I wrote why we're giving away Dynatrace for free for personal use. Because we're a strong believer that we need to build better software right from the start. That's why we want to enable developers and testers on their local machines to analyze the performance and the quality of the code before they check it in, before they move it through the pipe and it ends up in a disaster. So we're giving this away for free as a personal license. Of course, at some point in time, you may want to also buy Dynatrace professional licenses or commercial licenses. Feel free to contact us. If you don't know how to contact us, I'm sure you'll find contact information on our website. Or if you're going through the free trial and personal license process, you will get emails from me, and then I'm happy to get you in touch with my colleagues that can tell you more about licensing. What are the installation requirements? Depending on what environment you actually have. Do you have a small application? Do you have a large distributed application across the globe? There's different sizing models, obviously. We have a so-called deployment guide where you just fill out what does your environment look like, and then the deployment guide tells you what type of sizing you need. You can obviously find all of the details. Just Google for Dynatrace system requirements, and you will get to the public documentation page that explains all the different models. Typically, for people that I see doing the free trial or the personal license, the demo or the small setup is sufficient, and then otherwise it depends on what you really want to do with it. Another question that always comes up, well, is Dynatrace also available as a SaaS offering, as monitoring as a service? Yes, it is, but not for the free trial. So if you really want Dynatrace in the cloud, that means where we host Dynatrace in the Amazon cloud and provide it as a service, then you can obviously contact us. Okay, so just contact us and have a look at the whole thing. All right, how does AppMon work? And I guess I just have an interesting feature here that my PowerPoint just crashed, so I guess I would need a little, I'm not sure if you can see that, but let's restart it. Thanks, Microsoft. Sometimes it's good to have a solid tool that always works. So let me go back to my slides. Here we go. And recovered. How does Dynatrace AppMon work? Remember that slide that I showed you before? So basically, if in this environment, what you need to install and what you also install if you download the Dynatrace free trial, you install the Dynatrace server, the collector, and then you need to install the agents either on the local machine or on the remote machines, wherever you have it running. And you also install the rich client. Anything else is basically there for you. The session storage is the file system. The performance warehouse, if you have a professional database like a Postgre, SQL Server, Oracle, we can use it. Or in a demo environment, in an evaluation environment, we also provide an in-memory database. but for real tests, we always encourage you to use a real database. All right, so installing an agent, I think installing Dynatrace is pretty simple, just running an installer. If you want to install an agent, there's two options. You can either walk through our add tier wizard. It's just a self-guided wizard that tells you what you need to do, or you can also do it manually. If you've done it many times, you can just follow the instructions here. There's different options for Java, .NET, PHP, or for your web servers. It's really straightforward. Basically what I want to explain you, because I think this is something you should know, and this is true, I think, for any APM tool out there, we are loading a component, a DLL, a library, into your application process. And here is what happens, actually, when you do this with Dynatrace. So the first step is we are loading that agent into your Java, .NET, or PHP or web server. That means there's different options to load it in there. We're using official interfaces of Java and also .NET. Also for PHP, we're using this as interfaces. For Java, I have an example here. We have to specify a command line option where we say, this is the agent name, so we have to give it a name. And then we also have to tell it where to connect it to. Where's your Dynatrace collector and server to connect it to? Step one. Step two, the agent connects to Dynatrace, to the collector and the server, and says, hey collector, here I am, this is my name, can I continue? Do you know me? Do you expect me? Do you have a license? The collector then says, yes, I have a valid license and I'm also expecting you. I have a valid mapping. So we have called mappings where you can say which agents you are expecting, and you can actually also deny certain agents to avoid any abuse, or make sure that only people that know what they're doing can actually connect agents to your Dynatrace installation. Step number three, the agent gets instrumented. That means the agent for Java and .NET starts sending the bytecode to the collector sends back the instrumented bytecode, and from that time on, the agent in your application will capture data and sends it to the collector. We call the data that we capture sensor data. These are events, and then eventually it becomes the pure path. And the pure path is our, I would say, golden ingredient to Dynatrace. It is the end-to-end transaction that is automatically enabled for you end-to-end over multiple hops. All right, so let me show you a live demo. So here's what I've prepared, and this is real life. I hope it's not crashing on me like PowerPoint did before. I have installed the latest version of Dynatrace. I went to bit.ly DT Personal. I registered. I got an email from myself, and I basically accepted the terms. I got a license, and I also got the instructions on how to download and install Dynatrace. I'm running on a Windows laptop here, so I chose to download the 64-bit Windows installer. I just ran the whole thing, basic installer, nothing fancy. After the install is finished, it asks you, do you want to launch the client, the server, and the collector? I said yes. The client comes up and it asks you as a first step, please install your license. So I just gave it the license that I received via email. Also what I'm doing, and this is something, just a tip, if you're analyzing web applications and if you want to make use of Dynatrace user experience management, make sure your Dynatrace web server agent is running. In the instructions that you find on the free trial homepage, where you end up after registering, all the steps are explained, but this is just a little tip. And now it's time for the fun part. So I have two apps. I want to start with Alfresco, which is a Java app, and kudos to www.alfresco.com for providing this great application. And it's an application that runs in Tomcat. What I additionally did, I also added an Apache in front of it to show you how we can trace applications that have both an application server, one or many in the back, and also a series of web servers. I also have just some instructions. It's very easy. The only thing I need to do is, and again, it's a clean installation. I just need to add a certain path to my command line library for Java, and for Apache, I need to load a module into my Apache, and that's it. So let me go over. Let me go to my, I think I have everything prepared here. I hope so. Okay. So I'm not sure how many Java experts are out there. Depending on the application server, you may have different config files. For Tomcat, I'm just adding an additional command line option here to my my Catalina batch file. So the only thing I'm doing is adding this command line option, which says, please JVM, load this DLL, and let this DLL know it should connect to this Dynatrace collector or server, and it should register itself with this name. That's the only thing I need to do. And the other thing I have, because I'm also having Apache in front of it, I go to my HTTP config file. So this is the only line I need to add. So I'm loading a module into Apache, and I'm saying, please, Apache, load this DLL, and that's the only thing I need to do, let me save this. Okay, and now what I need to do is I want to launch my Alfresco. So this is just a batch file that launches my Java app. You can already see some output here, which is basically the Dynatrace output. It tells me the Dynatrace agent got loaded, and it gives me some additional output information. And I'm also starting HTTPD. That's my Apache. Oops, obviously not this. Here we go. So I need to cheat a little bit. What's the URL? Launch the app. I did that and access it via HTTP localhost 8000 Alfresco. So let's go to my browser of choice. Again, this is just where you can download the same app, and I'm going to localhost 8000/Alfresco. Alfresco, exactly. That's the app. And everything I do now, hopefully, if I did it right, every single click, if I log in with, I think admin, everything will be automatically recorded by Dynatrace. What also automatically happens, if you're dealing with a web application, you can right-click on this app. Again, I did not write this app. I didn't do any changes. But if you click on View Page Source, Dynatrace automatically also added this JavaScript file for me. I didn't have to ask any developer to change code. Automatically, we inject our JavaScript file that will automate, or we call it the JavaScript agent, that will automatically also capture data from the browser. So I could have full end-to-end tracing. Okay, so I think I clicked through this several times. That's good. Let me now go to my Dynatrace client. I guess I should have, this is from a previous example. So let me go back to my overview here. Last 30 minutes. Let's see what data we have. Still waiting for the transactions to be processed. What I typically do, just as a hint, if you are in the Dynatrace client, I love this. You can move the mouse over to the left. You see your system profile, and then you can click, if you have user experience management turned on, you can click on visits, and you can see how many visits are currently coming in. And I can see I have one visit right now that is coming in on my Chrome 47, and I see that I loaded the Alfresco app, and I went to log in, and now the data is coming in. So this is if you have user experience management turned on. If you only have, let's say, a backend application, a batch job, or you only really have like web services, one thing that I also always like to do is I like to go directly to the pure paths if I'm a developer, and I can see every single transaction automatically being captured by Dynatrace. Okay, I see end-to-end, a request is coming in on this particular URL, and I see all the calls being made, including database calls, including, in this case, database beginning a transaction. So this is the holy grail, as I would call it. There's also always a nice way to start. So if you click, this is your default dashboard. It's called our monitoring overview, and this is typically your entry point. It just takes typically a minute or two to refresh because there's an analytics engine behind the whole thing. So that's why you have to be a little patient at the beginning. So here I'm seeing now, hey, right now I have one active user on my system using one application, and I have one user that uses a desktop browser, is downloading some third-party content. It is going to Apache, then into the Java tier, into the database, and also making some external REST calls. So that's all there for me. And I can, if I want to, always right-click, drill down, and figure out what this user was really doing. So here I can now actually drill to these, what we call the pure paths. So click on my home. Remember, this was my first thing. Click on my Alfresco. Then I went to login. And everything, every single detail is fully captured for me. And I can now go down all the way into method level if I'm a developer. And let me just expand all, and I can figure out what actually happened here, including database statements and so on and so forth. I don't want to go into further details because I have many other tutorials on my YouTube channel that show how to analyze database statements, how to figure out, for instance, what's going on the health side, because we automatically do garbage collect. We capture health metrics of the process and the host. We look at memory metrics, we look at garbage collection, and automatically, just with a single library that is installed, give you full details of the system that this thing runs on. In this case, my Windows machine here. Okay, so this was it for Java. I'll keep the app running, that's okay. So the second app that I have is an ASP.NET app, and I'm actually not running it in IIS. I'm using Microsoft Web Matrix. because I downloaded .NET Nuke, which is a cool content management system in .NET yesterday. And basically what this guy is doing when I launch it from here, let's launch the app. It started it, and the way this works, it is launching it in IIS Express. Regular applications are typically deployed in IIS. I'm just using IIS Express in this case, so I'm just showing you the app. Let me go over to, I think this is localhost. Actually, it's easier if I just launch it from here. Run my app in Chrome. Let's see if this app actually runs. Here we go. This is .NET Nuke, which I installed on my local machine. So now what I want to do, I want to instrument this with Dynatrace. Let me go back to my little cheat sheet on my slides. So in order to instrument this application, again, kudos to dnnsoftware.com, I need to enable Dynatrace.NET agent for my ASP.NET app pool. If you're familiar with .NET, you know what an app pool is. And I want to enable the Dynatrace web server module, in this case for IIS Express. In this case, I need to do the change in the config file. If you host your app in IIS, there's actually a nice UI in IIS that does the whole thing. So let me do this. The only thing I need to do is I need to go to my .NET agent configuration tool. So this is a tool that also gets installed with Dynatrace. Just click on the plus button, and then you can select which process you want to monitor. And in my case, I want to monitor the IIS Express. If you're instrumenting an application that is hosted on IIS itself, it would be your W3WP process. I click on Next. I can give it a nice name. I just call it IIS Express. It's okay. And then I say, please Dynatrace, from now on, every time you see IIS Express being launched with that particular command line, or you can also just take parts out of it, then please instrument it and send the data to your local Dynatrace server. Finish, that's the first part of it. I also want to get insight into the native part of IIS or IIS Express. In this case, I want to go to, as I said before, just my config file. It is the application host.config file in IIS Express, and in IIS it is really a nice UI that you have. So I need to add this module, and I also adding this here. So this basically makes sure that IIS Express is now loading my agent into the native part of IIS. And then the only thing I need to do is I need to restart the whole thing. Stop it, start it, and if everything went all right, I can go back to my browser. I just reload that page. That means now IIS Express will actually load our agent into the app. We automatically instrument the whole thing, and then every single click that I do here will automatically be captured by Dynatrace down to the method level, including database statements. Just as we've seen before with the Java app. And I think I've actually done 2 apps, so let me just click through something. I think if I log in with, and I hope I remember my name, admin, when I set this up, I think there's some cool database statements, so I just logged in. And every single click I do here, and if I create a new page, add a new page, then there's actually a little more excitement going on in the data we capture. And I want to actually analyze why this takes that long, so hopefully we'll find this. So page name, my test app for my users online, test user page, URL is Andy's test page, and then some blah blah. Okay, and I think add page. I'm sure I could do a little more, but I think I'm good with this. And this is my page. I can probably also edit this stuff here. Different title, but I guess you get the idea, because what should have happened, just the same as with the Java app. If I click on View Page Source, then yeah, exactly here, the Dynatrace agent was automatically loaded. The JavaScript agent. Again, I did not modify anything in the app. I just downloaded this yesterday, and that's only by loading the agent. This thing is in there, which means everything in the browser should have been captured for me, and also everything end-to-end. Browser, ASP.NET Engine, all the way into the database. So let's go back to my Dynatrace client. And let's go back to my overview here. As I said before, this initial view is powered by our Purelytics engine. So we're doing a lot of analytics in the background to give you some out-of-the-box diagnostics information. I'm typically a patient guy. Sometimes I'm not that patient, but as you can see here now, it's refreshed. I can see now in the last 30 minutes, I had users going through the browser. Still, the old data is here from my Java app, but also the new stuff from my .NET app is here. And it goes from IIS to ASP.NET into SQL Server. So that's all here. And the cool thing is, just let's move the mouse over, show database calls, and it's all here. Beautiful. All the database statements. And if I want to, right-click, drill down to the pure path. So these are now done the more deep dive things you can do, especially cool for developers, seeing really everything that happened when you clicked on a certain link, or the database statements being executed, also time spent in your individual methods. So that's all pretty cool. And now the coolest thing is there's a lot of methods in here that probably been coming from Microsoft or somebody else. I can right click and I can say source code lookup, and I can decompile the IL code if I want to. I can also, if I have Reflector being installed, .NET Reflector, can open up this in Reflector. If I have Visual Studio in the code, I can just open this in the IDE, and the same thing also works for Java, obviously. All right. Now, this was the rich client for diagnostics. I want to just give you, and I just show you how this works for two apps, Java and .NET, so that you know that I'm not lying with my web UI. What I showed you in the screenshots. So this is now a different system, actually monitoring a little bigger application that is under load. And this is a screenshot that I've taken before. So here you can actually see, let me refresh this. I think I opened this like an hour ago. This shows me now what has been going on in the last hour on our application. I can either see the world map, obviously, and click in and figure out where are my users coming from. I can obviously also go back to what I love a lot is the multidimensional drill down, so I can see, hey, how many users are there on the system, on the live system. Let's see the frustrated. Why are they frustrated? It seems that 53% are frustrated because the last action was frustrated, so they left the app having a frustrating experience on the last click, so either a crash or was very slow. And then you can drill down further and you can say, okay, why? Okay, it's 50% mobile web applications. Why? 45% Android browsers. Android browser 4.0, 55 coming from Asia, 22 from Europe, and here I can now say inspect filtered visits. So this is where I can actually now see every single user that meets that criteria. That means being frustrated coming from an Android browser. And I have a good list here, 9 people in the last hour. And if I want to now hand this over to the developer, I can say, hey, please developer, have a look at this user, DDA from Kuwait. I say opening client. If I click on it, then you can see here now my client here comes up, and I can now see this user. Now this is the visit of DDA from Kuwait City, and I can see every single click that this user did and why this user was frustrated. Because he had to wait 197 seconds on the special offers page, and 144 of this time seconds were spent on the server, and then I can do the same drill down options that you've seen me done before on my local app, full waterfall diagram, figuring out what has gone wrong, which individual URL. It seems there was a special offers big image on that page that caused all the hiccup. I can even right click and click on details, and I can see this was a almost a 5 megabyte file, and there was probably the issue here because I assume this gentleman from Kuwait doesn't have our servers are in Europe somewhere. Let me see what this gentleman here has in terms of a connection. They are on a DSL low connection, so that's probably the reason why downloading a 5 megabyte file could take quite a while on an Android device. All right, so and there's many more of these use case scenarios that you can obviously do in Dynatrace. These are just some of them, but considering the time, let me go back to my slides to finish my part, and then you can ask your questions. By the way, feel free to put questions in the Q&A window. So, do you like it? I hope you do. Here's how you get started. So, you can sign up for your 30-day trial. just go to bit.ly/ttpersonnel or find it on Google, Dynatrace free trial. Watch out for emails that come in my name, Grabner at Dynatrace.com. You can trust me. You can learn more through the YouTube tutorials. So I have a lot of sessions on the YouTube channel, how to deep dive, how to create dashboards, how to do high-level analysis. Ask more questions on our discussion forum. Once you're signed up for the free trial or personal, you have full access to our discussion forum. You can also access our online documentation. You can find our plugins on GitHub, and we have a lot of stories and best practices on our blog. Okay, and also a sidekick here, if you want to have also a look at monitoring as a service, please also have a look at Ruxit. I'm sure you've heard about it. Dynatrace Epsilon is an awesome product, but we also now have the next generation of Epsilon, which is Ruxit, so please also have a look at them. Now, if you want to evaluate Dynatrace, but you don't have your own application, feel free to use our sample app. It's called Easy Travel. Easy Travel can be downloaded on our community. If you don't want to run it, you can even download some sample sessions. Remember, we can export and import and share data. I have my Share Your PurePath program where you can send me data, but on the same page, I also give you some downloads of exported data that I had, and so you can just import it and look at it. There's also a video on there how this works. Last but not least, reminder, we are constantly speaking at meetups and user groups. So we mean my colleagues and I, we are performance experts. We've been working in performance for many, many years. We're not sales guys. Obviously, we love Dynatrace because you know what we can do with it. And it's an awesome product. And now with the free trial and personal, it's for free. So here are some of the events in the upcoming months. And hopefully, again, a reminder of all the other links that you should know. And now, I want to open it up for Q&A. So let me go and hopefully find where is my window? Here we go. I can see some questions already coming in. So please feel free to put your questions. The first question is, when will Dynatrace integrate with Ruxit? Well, Dynatrace doesn't integrate with Ruxit. Dynatrace and Ruxit are two platforms that I'm sure you might be a customer of ours that converge technologies. So that means we're already converging our agents. That means we have individual agents that already are able to capture Dynatrace and Ruxit data, or capture the same data and then send it to Dynatrace and Ruxit. We are converging the two products over the time together. It's not integrated, but we're converging. Is auto baselining presented in Dynatrace like an app dynamics? Yes. So we auto baseline. So I don't have all the technical details of app dynamics, but the way we do it, we don't believe in averages or in standard deviation. We believe in percentiles. So we look at response times. We look at, let me just show you how this works in I think this is my larger installation, this one here. We baseline the median and the 90th percentile of your critical business transactions, and then we notify you in case there are any degradations when it comes to response time, when it comes to throughput, when it comes to failure rates. So here's an example where we are looking at the throughput. We are currently here baselining a business transaction called Easy Travel Search, and then the response time here is the median. So you can see how that works. Let's have a little bigger time frame here. Let's see how that looks like on the 6 hours time scale. And we can see here at about 2:50 in the afternoon European time, we had probably deployment, and then the response time of the median response time, the 50th percentile degraded. We're still good on the 90th percentile. So yes, the answer is we also have automatic baseline for your key business transactions. Next question. This is a question involving the new SQL agent with 6.3. Will we need to have an agent installed in .NET Java tier that speaks to a SQL server to get data from it, or can we instrument it on any SQL server regardless of agent availability? Yes, the new visibility into the database. Let me just show you. I think in this environment I have it up. Here's a SQL server, and this SQL server is monitored by the database agent. And the database agent runs independently from the app. It's basically, you can, Jared, I think you are a long-term Dynatrace user. It is basically running on a collector and is pulling in data from Oracle and SQL Server right now, and it's running independent from the app. That means you really see everything that is going on that instance. Okay. In what scenario I would host agent and web app agent together? In what scenario I would host the agent and the web app agent together? Well, in my case, Ramesh, I have everything on my local machine, right? I mean, this is clear that this might not be your usual scenario where you have web server and app server on the same machine. I just wanted to do it for demo purposes. In the environment that I have here, which is a little more complex, this is an environment that is actually distributed across multiple hosts. There's an Ubuntu and also in a second Linux machine where the different processes are running. So you can see here Apache and the business backend is running on this machine, but the .NET pieces and IIS is running on the other machine. So of course, in a real life environment, you'd probably have it distributed across different machines. And Dynatrace, you just install an agent on these individual boxes, hook them up to your web server, to your app server, and then automatically, without any modification, you get the full end-to-end view. How do I compare last week's business hours with this week's business hours performance? So you have different options. You can, we have a very sophisticated and I would say very cool way of creating dashboards. So you can create your dashboards. I'm just adding a chart here, and I can say I wanna. Let me put this up here. Let's say pure path response time. Right, of a particular app. Maybe you want interested in all of your apps or just a particular one. Let's pick the Easy Travel portal. So this is now your, let's say last, you said certain business hours, so you can define a custom time threshold. So you have the full ability to say custom or last week. Let's say, I think you said last week. Okay. Okay. And then I can do the same thing. I just copy paste this guy, move it next to each other. I can also overlay these two with a dual axis chart where I could do the same thing, but in the bottom chart now, I want to say not last week, but I want to see maybe I want to have 1 week, but I want to have it shifted by 1 week. I think this is what you want to have. And obviously you get the feeling there's a lot of things you can compare here and configure different time frames. You can compare different time frames. You can be very customized, whatever your Monday to Friday is. How do I show response time graph with baseline in a custom chart? So if I go back to my baseline, then I can say I want to open this in a new dashboard. Then I have this in a custom dashboard, and then if you want to, you can add whatever other chart you have. So maybe you wanna have the response time of a particular business transaction on the bottom here. You want to have, I don't know what makes sense, but I'm sure you know your application better than I do. But for instance, the number of database calls in your app. Okay, so baseline, compare with anything else. Do you have a slide on the differences between 6.2 and 6.3? William, our product management team is going to have the release notes ready once 6.3 is officially released, and you can look at the 6.3 release notes, and the release notes typically highlight the changes of the previous release. Okay. Okay, Uda, I hope this answered. Hello. This is a big question. How does Ruxit differ from Dynatrace application monitoring? What do each products currently offer that the other does not? Ben, that's a good question. I think the way I see it, and this is just a very quick answer, as you probably know, that Ruxit is offering monitoring in the cloud, but also now managed. But I would say most of people probably using as a monitoring as a service. We believe that most people are using it for production monitoring. I think what Ruxit does really great is giving you Smartscape, which is the smart analytics of how a problem evolved. So everything, if you run your applications in the cloud, if you want to do production monitoring, if you have large environments that are very, let's say, dynamic, Ruxit is perfect if you want to do production monitoring and alerting and finding problems faster. If you have a homegrown application and you want to implement a full lifecycle story. That means you want to start in your CI environment, you want to do load testing, and you want to compare the individual builds across the lifecycle, and then also go into production monitoring. Then Dynatrace AppMon is your answer. Also, Ruxit right now, I need to look at the website, the technology stack they support. Obviously, they support Java, PHP, .NET, and Node. I think they're not supporting some of the, let's say, more not esoteric, sorry, some of the message brokers, some of the backend systems. So here you need to probably also do a comparison of a technology stack. But please give Ruxit a try. We think it's an awesome offering for your apps, especially if you run your apps also in the cloud, but not only in the cloud, obviously. So have a look at it. Can you share any document regarding the icon labeling displaying front of the transactions in Dynatrace? The icon labeling, I think you are talking about, let me go to my other installation here. I think if you talk about the pure path, you're talking probably about these icons here. I think on the community, there's a Günther Huber, who is our doc expert. He has provided a PDF document with all the icons. So the question came in from Uday. Please go to the community and search for icons. I think this was a request that came in several times last year. Also go on the answers.dynatrace.com. I'm pretty sure Günther actually posted it there. So there's a full description of what all the individual icons mean. And typically what I do, I just right-click on details, and then typically you see that green means okay, yellow is a warning, red means something failed. And then these icons on the bottom end of the pure path means who created that node, which sensor created that node, which servlet sensor, database sensor, and so on. Next question, can I have a dashboard that shows, say, volume or response time against the baseline that updates, say, every minute? Sure. Volume or response time against the baseline that updates. Yeah, every dashboard in Dynatrace, you can set an automatic baseline update. Also, I mean, I'm still using the rich client here, but we can also go, obviously, in our web dashboards, and if you fancy a web UI, which is obviously easier for a lot of let's say business folks to get access to, then I can easily create my dashboards here, make it as big as you want. And I think you said something like add measure, what was that, volume or response time. As to the response time of a particular business transaction. Done. And obviously you can, add whatever you want on there, and then also compare it with, let's say, the volume. So then let's add also the response time here. Oops, the response time. But instead of what was the other one? I think it was this one here. Done. Instead of the average, we just use the count, which is kind of the load. So now we have load and response time next to each other. And then this automatically refreshes for you, or you can do the same thing in the rich client as we've seen before. So whatever you want can be done here. I'm wanting to create a mobile user action dashboard that I can send email reports on and filter by the top X. I have the dashboard set up for top 20 slowest mobile actions, but I cannot find a way to also list the visit tag on the dashboard. I think what you're talking about, Jared, is user actions. All right, this here. And I'm not sure if there's a tag ID, but there is no, is there anything more in here? I don't think the user tag is on these. That's correct. User action pure paths, yeah. So if you want to have the slowest, so I think, Jared, what you can do, we have on the one side the business transaction export, where you can live feed the data to, let's say, Elasticsearch, and actually with 6.3 we have a new Purelytics stream. So this is coming now with 6.3, where you can actually say live stream the data to Elasticsearch. And we actually stream out user actions, and we also stream out for every user action the visit tag, and then you can just set up your Elasticsearch and maybe use something like Kibana to get your top slowest. I think this is the perfect use case for our new Analytics stream to answer all of your questions that you might not be able to handle right now with the default dashboards. Okay, so this is something to look at. Let's see, any other questions? Let me just in the meantime go back to this slide. I hope I answered this one. Did I answer, in case I did not answer the questions that you asked, can you please rephrase them? I hope I answered all of those that came in. How do I do this? Yeah, how do this? Yes, yes. I think so, I think so. So for those folks that are, just a lot of people still on the line, thank you for that. In case there's more questions, I give you a couple of more seconds to put them into the question feature, and otherwise you know that there's always the discussion forum. By the way, for the Dynatrace customers, there will be an in-depth What's New in Dynatrace 6.3 webinar in February, just before we release this. This was more a regular online performance clinic, as you can see, for people that are new with Dynatrace that want to evaluate it. More details on Dynatrace 6.3 will follow in February. Okay, if there's no more questions that are coming in from the live audience, I want to say thanks to everyone that attended. I hope this was useful. I hope you're as excited about Dynatrace as I am, and I hope there's another question. In which case it is advantage to have server in a separate machine from that of a client and collector? Well, it depends on your resources of that machine, right? That's why we have a deployment guide. We have, if you want Dynatrace on your app, you should fill out the deployment guide, where the deployment guide asks you of what does your app look like, and then it tells you what's the server sizing, how many collectors do you need, and what should the collector sizing be. And with sizing, I mean RAM, storage, network bandwidth. So it really depends on whether a single server of yours can provide the resources. That's pretty much what it is. If you really have a very large environment, then our team is also happy to help you. But please look at the deployment guide. That will tell you all the details. How do you configure the Dynatrace environment system profile, such as the sensor rules, measurements, business transactions, incidents, etc., without having the knowledge of the source code, which is known to the developer? Well, before I go into too many details, I want to show you that I have bit.ly DT tutorial. So this is my YouTube channel, and I think I have I have a session on sensors capturing context, data, and description. So I really go into very much detail here. Just a quick one, the way I do it. If I have no clue about the application, Dynatrace still has all of your bytecode. That's the cool thing. So if you go to the system profile, you can go to sensors, and then, for instance, for my .NET app, and again, I have no clue about .NET Nuke, I can still click on Browse. Browse brings me the class browser. So I can say, now please show me all of my .NET classes being loaded, or the one from your agent group, obviously. And now Dynatrace lists you all the methods, the classes, and the method arguments. And so I have all of this available. And the cool thing with Dynatrace, every view in Dynatrace is automatically filterable. So for instance, if I want to find something like login, I just type in login, and then Dynatrace will automatically filter that tree for me and shows me every method that has to do something with login, or maybe something with authentication. I'm sure there's some method maybe that has to do with authentication, and then the list becomes smaller and I can pick and choose. Okay, I can also use search for, I think, if I search for username, let's see if I'm lucky here. See, there's even, I mean, there's obviously some methods here, add logo, get user by username. I think this is a great way, the way I do it. But more, please have a look at my YouTube tutorials. All right. I'm saying about blind configuration. I know that. I'm saying about blind configurations or auto configuration. Well, there should not be any blind configuration. I'm not sure, Uday, if I understand your question completely. Uday, maybe do me a favor and post a question on answers.dynatrace.com, maybe with some screenshots. Okay? I think then more people can benefit because we are at the top of the hour and I can see people dropping out and we want to make sure more people can take advantage of that. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening in. The recording will soon be up on YouTube and also on APM University. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.